Let me do my intro again. Let me get a comment in the chat box if you guys can hear me. I guess when the first person gets in, please put a comment in the chat box. And right when I was about to go in on my rant, the YouTube gods, I guess, decided, nah, Z, you don't get to speak right now. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I just could not continue the stream. Every time I tried to get back on, it kicked me off. So I don't know what the hell is going on. Um, like I said, I don't know. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Um, like I said, whenever the first couple people get in, I guess y'all put a comment in and I'll y'all let me know. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, okay, um, when I was watching the interview with Sagar and Crystal interviewing the dude, I was I was a little annoyed, and I was considering naming the mashup "Let Them Eat Cake" because I said to myself, well, if we rejigger this entire society to work for our daughters, cool, but then deal with the consequences of rejiggering this entire thing to work for your daughters. Fine, it works for your daughters, right? Your daughters are outpacing your sons. That's cool. Only 25% of your sons are desirable to your daughters. That's cool. But then deal with the consequences. Deal and many of you raised, and I want to say this particular mashup part two is gonna be profanity laden. So I'm letting y'all know. Y'all got kids in the room, show them out. Many of y'all raised asshole daughters. And all you can focus on are your immature sons, but you don't realize or you refuse to accept your daughter, right? Your daughter is an asshole, right? And a lot of people don't want to accept that your daughters are assholes. And because y'all raised them to be assholes, right? You've rejiggered this entire economy and society to work for your daughters, and that's cool, but many of your sons have dropped off. And our entire society looked like they were okay with that until they see the fallout of it. You were okay with it because you thought it was going to be some 1, 2, 3%, and it was pretty much going to be regulated to young black boys and young Hispanic boys. And then you realize, oh crap, too many white boys are falling off too. That's what Dr. T. Hassan Johnson was speaking about a couple nights ago, right? This is biting into even the white community, white society. And our society isn't built for so many people to be single, not have children, not get married, and for so many young men and men in general to just drop off. Excuse me. Our society's not built for that. But here we are, right? And that is one of the most interesting things with this. So I wanted to say, let them eat cake because this is what y'all wanted, right? This is what y'all, and to me, this reeks of like the outcomes that many radical feminists wanted, not even so much your run of the mill everyday feminists, but the radical feminists, because the radical feminists were the ones that were really speaking about gender fluidity. The radical feminists were the ones speaking about we should have men on one side of the planet and women on the other side of the planet, and heterosexuality is a choice, right? That wasn't really so much the run of the mill everyday feminists. It was the radical feminists. And so when I see women, black women namely, engaging in a lot of LGBTQ activity, and I just say L, I know what I'm saying. A lot of LGBTQ activity, when you see that they're the most same sex loving group of people in America, that they engage in bisexuality the most, when you see the destruction of the nuclear family and the fallout of it, I think to myself, well, this is what y'all wanted, right? This is what came with it. Y'all let too many angry, bitter women enter into academia, enter into the workforce, And like decades later, this is where we are. And I'm saying this for a reason because you know, I don't think FD Signifier listens to me anymore. But if him or any of those other particular people are listening, I know what I'm saying, and it's not to be homophobic, and it's not to be like 1950s Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, but it is to say the fallout that you see going on is because you didn't check this at the door. You thought those women came to this place out of good faith and not out of spite and anger, and that the fallout would be this now. Well, the fallout is what it is now. Look at who's getting married. Look at who's staying married. Right? Look at the child birth rate. Look at the people. And I'm so mad I didn't save this video. But it was something that's Crystal Ball from Breaking Points covered months ago. And it was an article I think she covered where for the first time, maybe in human history, the one thing that people, and I'm so paraphrasing all of this right now, but the one thing that we all had in common is that we wanted to have children and wanted to get married and wanted to have a nuclear family. But it was a recent polling that showed that middle class and definitely poor people are not looking forward to having a family and getting married and whatever. And it was only like once you got up past a certain point where those people further up actually still wanted to have a family and they look forward to their future. But the further down you went down the economic scale or the social and economic scale, the less likely those people wanted to have a family. And what I'm saying is you see that reflected in our society, right? That's what I'm saying. You see that reflected in our society, and I think that's not something that's often spoken about, right? And so we find ourselves here. So I really wanted to make a video called Let Them Eat Cake. Because between rejiggering this thing for our daughters, between raising asshole daughters, between not caring about the outcomes of your sons until millennials, younger extras and millennials are 45 and 45 years old. Like now you're like, oh my God, sound the alarm bells. Now you want to say that? You look at where we are now. Now you want to say that? So I really wanted to label this Let Them Eat Cake because of that. See, people hear that, and I'm kind of annoyed that it got way too overblown. You're gonna die alone, or buy a dog, die alone. It got way too common and way too overblown, and people just shooting it out for no reason. But there is a consequence to your life that leads you to dying alone. It's not just it's not like everything is okay and then you die alone, right? All of the relationship and intimacy, right? Because like, look how far some of us get because of nepotism, to be honest, because of our network, right? And because you have that support system at home. I'm not speaking about the support system from your siblings and from your parents and from maybe your relatives. No, I'm speaking about that support system from a loved one. From a girlfriend, from a boyfriend, from a wife and a husband. And so much of our society is saying, yeah, screw that. And I'm mainly speaking about the women. We allowed women to pass off their delusions as standards. Now, none of you know how to check that now. We've allowed women to pass off their delusions as simply just having standards. And then when you question them about their standards and what they're really looking for, or what they won't settle for, then they sound insane. And the reason why that matters is because then that trickles down in society. It's not just about that woman's standards in a vacuum. It's about one of them, two of them, 10 of them, 1,000 of them, 100,000 of them, 1 million of them thinking like this. And then what does that mean for the workforce? And then what does that mean for consumerism and materialism in America? And what does that mean for Social Security, right? And what does that mean for purchasing homes? What does that mean for our education system? It's not in a vacuum, right? What does that even mean for what it means to be a human? When more and more of your young people, women, are saying, yeah, he cost, I cost this much, you can't afford me. Or for the men to say, yeah, she costs too much, I can't afford her. And I encourage men to start saying that. I know people want to be like, no, I don't want to say that to no women. No. In a weird way, you're actually saying it's on you. Nah, babe, I can't afford you. You cost too much. Because I truly think if enough men say that, women are going to start questioning these insane stuff. If she only hears it from one or two dudes, no. But I really think that if women started hearing more men say, "Oh no, I can't afford you," because if they hear one guy say it, they're gonna think that's a compliment. Oh, I'm upper echelon. I cost too much, right? Especially certain black women. But if she's hearing that from dozens of men and niggas ain't piping, right? And niggas ain't taking her out on dates. Oh yeah, no, she gonna reconsider what she's saying, right? But I would argue that's kind of one of the issues that we're having now, right? They're becoming more and more expensive, and when I say expensive, I really mean delusional. But whatever, right? They're becoming more and more expensive, and there's a fallout of that in society. I would argue. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, because I think a lot of this is about consumerism and what you think defines you as a human being, right? And people, namely the women, really think that if I can't have the nicest things and the most opulent things, and if a man is not paying for certain things, then I'm lesser of a human and he's lesser of a human, right? Or he's saying that I'm less of a human. And why can't I have what this woman has? This is kind of one of the drawbacks of social media, right? Why can't I have what he has or what she has? Why can't I live the life like this person, right? As I've said to you before, some of these people, their favorite content creators, their favorite celebrities, especially the ones that are heavy on social media, they walk around. Sometimes they show their homes or they show the inside of their homes. They take glam shots. They're traveling. They take pictures of them on the Learjet and all this other stuff, and that's driving a lot of our society crazy because now these people seem far more accessible than they actually are. There's the parasocial relationship going on. And so what ends up happening is that these people then say, well, Cardi B has this, why can't I have it? And then you mix that in with these thriller divester women that are making some of these women sound even more insane. These black women and luxury women, right? Because for them, it's revolutionary to have a black woman sporting some expensive stuff, right? The revolution is not in not caring about those stuff. The revolution is not in being with someone or loving someone through thick and thin. The revolution is not about questioning consumerism in the first place. And I'm saying that as a person that likes nice stuff. The revolution is not in questioning materialism in the first place. The revolution is not in questioning how these products came to be, right? Sweatshops and all of that. The textile industry. No, the revolution is not in any of that. Pollution, none of that. No, the revolution is not in that. The revolution is in showing a dark skinned black woman with traditional black women features, West African features, right? In an expensive car, sporting some expensive, exclusive, tailor-made clothes. That's what's revolutionary. Preferably being loved on by Leonardo DiCaprio looking white dude. That's the revolution. Essentially, a black woman reliving Victorian era, Regency era life. That's the revolution, right? And when you listen to Paris Milan speak, when you listen to Real Talk with Yanni speak, when you listen to Chrissy speak, right? And the way they present things, it's not just because a lot of these people, they don't want to listen to someone necessarily crass, right? That's why they like Lexus Exodus. That's why they like Mahogany Pink, because they come off more classy, right? And like somebody put me on, it was like apparently Lexus Exodus works for a corporation or something. She's a corporate woman, which that's what kind of inspired me to speak about neoliberal black women. And part two is coming. Part two is coming. Um, but what makes these particular women so appealing? Like Paris Milan doesn't curse, right? And Lexus Exodus gives that fake interview voice, right? Real Talk with Yanni, she's she comes off a little bit more stereotypical, but she's not extra crass, right? That's what makes them somewhat appealing to these women, you know? It's that they come off a little bit more classy, just a smidge. They don't come off as drunkards like what's her name, right? So, you get to this place where that's the appeal. That's what's revolutionary. Think about what we're saying. In the 70s and the 60s and the 50s, going all the way back to pretty much Reconstruction, the revolutionary thing to do was to love regardless as a black person. To love regardless and to really stress the through thick and thin part. And now the revolution has changed to black women in luxury. No struggle love, right? Black women in luxury, the soft life, and no struggle love. That's the revolution now. So essentially, and I don't think that many of the subscribers to these women realize what they're saying, but the revolution is in being a chocolate dip upper middle class or rich white woman. That's why so many of you hear me stress that so much, right? That's the revolution. That is the gold standard. Being a upper middle class or rich white woman chocolate dipped. And so that's what makes Lexus Exodus appealing because of that fake interview voice, right? That's what makes Chrissy appealing because she speaks about the aesthetics of things and she emphasizes that, right? Now Paris Milan told y'all she's gonna slowly start speaking about lifestyle and essentially black women luxury stuff. And she definitely can do it now because I think she's making money off her whatever makeup thing she got going on, and now how much money she's now made off of YouTube, so now she can really stress it, right? So she's made how much money for years now off of rage porn content, and now she's gonna cash in and then switch her brand to more black women in luxury type of stuff. And that's the revolution, apparently. So the revolution is just being a hyper consumer. And that's actually a little, that's kind of sad to me. That I'm not, to be honest with you, that's kind of sad to me. Not questioning anything. I just want nice stuff. And I don't care about what happens on the planet. Why can't I have it too? Right? And you think, I mean, even when you look at the black women in luxury pages, it really is just recreating white white consumerist life. They're showing them in nice hotels. They're showing themselves on the beach with the bluest water and the nicest sand, under some umbrella, wearing the exact same thing a white woman would a thin white woman would be wearing, right? Just like, you know, with the nice handbags and taking pictures next to expensive European vehicles. I mean, it literally is just recreating, like I said, upper middle class and rich white life. And if that's revolutionary, then what? If that's revolutionary, I would love to hear these people say what's not revolutionary. What is standard issue for black people, for black women? Screw that. Let them be so. For black women in this society. And I'm not trying to be a full hypocrite because I like nice stuff too. But I definitely don't think purchasing some expensive shoes and showing them off and look at what I could do is revolutionary. That's not right. Being a black man that could afford a $120,000 Benz and to send your kids to a private school, I don't know how much of that is revolutionary. And might be a little bit more rare because obviously black people's position in this society, but I don't know how revolutionary it is, especially when my daughter or my son comes back home in college years and then they're pretty much a chocolate dip white person. They don't like other black people. They don't like being around other black people. They're both dating non-black people, right? One of them might be LGBTQ. Is what I did really revolutionary? Right? Or maybe that was the goal in the first place. My daughter ends up with a white dude, my son ends up with another dude, right? Or my son ends up with a Latina and my daughter ends up with another black woman. That, right? That's revolutionary, right? No struggle love. Y'all name the relationship that doesn't go through struggle. Calling any man that's not like that doesn't have a private jet a dusty, and then even the ones that do have the money, if they don't adhere exactly to what you think a man should be, better yet, you feel a man should be, he's a dusty too. The question you got to start asking these women is who's not a dusty? It's gonna be like three dudes, and I'm putting money they're probably gonna be white. Who isn't a dusty? They throw the term dusty out so it's like, wait, for, let's forget race. I'm gonna start showing y'all every man, let you know a little bit about some of his secrets, and then let's see who you. It is a woman's imperative to weed out men, that's cool. But that shit done got into hyperdrive. And it's make forget the men for a second. It's making even the women miserable. And it reminds me of the nameless protagonist speaking about the 80-20 rule to infinity. How it just keeps on recreating itself. And then you get to a point where the women pretty much phase out all men. This is kind of the hive model, right? Where like only those handful of dudes get to pipe all the women, but only a handful of women are really gonna be like the producers, I mean, of children, right? You kind of see that now, like you're seeing some of the beginnings of that. I don't know where y'all live, but there's a whole lot of LGBTQ women not too far from where I am, and there's a increasingly more and more. There's a lot of women, young women, way more than people think, not having sex and don't have children and don't have any relationship prospects right now. They're not even talking to someone right now. White, black, Latino, or otherwise, they're not even they don't have any intimate anything going on. 32, 33, 35 years old, right? That's that's crazy, y'all. That's crazy. Like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, right? And these same people are speaking about being revolutionary. I want like my question, it's weird because we're watching these women call so many different men dusty, and I'm thinking about me just reading through Paris Milan's chat the other night when she was speaking about mid males, right? Just these what she considers just average looking dudes or under average, and she said you know what? I actually have it saved, right? And she said because so that she wouldn't be flagged, she's actually being way meaner than what she the term is mid males, but she actually thinks they're ugly, right? They're actually undesirable, which is okay. You know what? Everybody has their opinion about looks and everything from different people. Cool, but the term is meant to be derogatory, mid males, right? And you think about women, you're like, okay, let me get this right. The average height, if I'm not mistaken, for American women is 5'4". The average weight is some 169. Black women tend to be bigger than that. Okay, cool. And black women that are bigger than that are all over the interwebs calling all type of men, particularly black men, dusties. And now this term that Paris Milan has kind of coined, mid males. And of course, because women always do this, they reserve the right to do this until the end of time. Well, the black men do it. We let men talk to about us all different type of ways. Women will justify anything ever by saying men did it first, even if it's not true. Right? And I guess that's the difference between men and women is that we don't allow men to say that, and we actually kind of chastise men if they say they did something because a woman did something first, right? But women get to go around the entire planet pretty much saying whatever crap they're doing, however mean they are, however sassy they are, however poisonous and toxic they are, they're doing it as a response to a man or men in general. And I guess that's just the way the cookie crumbles, right? But back to the story. So, you know, this mid male thing and this calling men dusty, okay. If the median income for women in America is anywhere between $25,000 and $35,000 a year, so I mean, half of American women are making at most less than $35,000 a year. Let's say that again. Half of American women are making anywhere between 25 and 35,000. So that means half of American women are making at most $35,000 a year. And somehow, some way, those women, and even some of the women in there that's making above that 35, making let's say 40 grand, 42, 45,000, are calling all type of men, particularly black men once again, dusties. Now the term is mid males, right? And they're all around the internet screaming no struggle love. Right? No struggle love. Because the burden of performance is still on men. So it doesn't matter that she only makes $32,000 a year, $28,000 a year. You, as the man, are supposed to be making enough to cover both of y'all anyway. So it doesn't matter. Now, when we actually look at the economic landscape, once again, for men, regardless of race now, or before you control for race, better yet, that's how I'm going to start saying it because that's actually more accurate. Before you control for race, men in America make anywhere the median for men in America is somewhere between $40,000 and $48,000 a year. The median. And you wonder why these women find themselves in these kind of compromised positions. Like I keep on saying, we're not talking about who they would have sex with. Women in general, this is not exclusive to black women, would have sex with anyone. Whoever they find attractive, you could get it. You could be a bum. You could work at Walmart or McDonald's. You could be in the corporate office. You could have the corner office and be lead attorney, literally, right? They'll have sex with any one of those dudes. Now, the marriage gold standard is different. And what they're saying is for them to be in a real relationship with you, especially married to you, that's when the bar shoots through the ceiling. And then you wonder why the marriage rates are plummeting. Before we start talking about character or weight or height or looks, whether men or women, before we start talking about that, I think this society is having a really difficult time. And I'm not talking about the people that know. I'm not talking about the muhaha people. I'm looking at people who I legitimately think really don't get it. You raised your daughters to be assholes. Going back to what I said in the beginning of the stream. You raised your daughters to be assholes, and also you told them don't settle, cool, and now they put the bar of relationship through the roof, on the moon. And it sounded cute and it sounded good because y'all weren't doing the math. Now you have all type of middle class, upper middle class, poor, and rich women fighting for the top 20, 25% of men. That don't mean those are going to be the only men that get married. So, but pretty much that's the gold standard, right? And like I tell my subscribers and other young men and men in general, if you get a whiff of her even feeling for a nanosecond that she settled for you, or you're not exactly her kind, you're not exactly the type, but you're good enough in that. In that. Because good enough can't get you nowhere. If she's not with you enthusiastically, it's going to fail. It's going to fail. That is doomed. Right? But what we're seeing now is that women are not even trying to do that. They want to be with the man that they feel enthusiastic about, but then actually not feel enthusiastic about him. I know it didn't make any sense, right? Because they always got to play poker face, and so it reminds me of when the research came out a few years ago about women judging men's attractiveness on all these dating apps, and that curve was like all type of messed up. So men had a pretty nice bell curve of who they thought of was most attractive, who they thought was average, but they would still date and try to get to know, and then who they thought were unattractive. It was a pretty smooth bell curve for the men. And what the online statistics showed was that women didn't think any man was supremely attractive. They found a handful of men very attractive, most men average to ugly. And that's what I mean when I say the bar has gone to the moon. So, like, no, once again, no men were supremely attractive. A handful of men were okay attractive, and then most men were either average or ugly to women. When you have it's that's not just 3, 4, 5% of women. When you have an entire society where the numbers are reflected like that, what are you supposed to do with that? And I'm not saying all of this to scare my subscribers, all of y'all that's listening. Don't be necessarily discouraged from what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, until this society fixes that, I don't see how you fix anything. Until you fix the way women are thinking and speaking and acting around young boys and men, the girls and the women, how the females are speaking and acting and thinking about the males, you really can't fix this. Because what y'all think y'all can level up men to infinity, forgetting that men are human beings, and that's just not going to happen. So all those I'm not settling women, well, have fun. You don't have to. Mr. Z is not. I don't want to do the whole scary tactic thing right now. You don't have to settle. No one's telling you to. Yeah, but let's see. And like I said, I'm not speaking about who these women are having sex with. I'm really speaking about marriage and real relationships and like who people are actually ending up with, right? Who people are actually ending up with. In a serious sense, relationship and marriage, not just sex. When it comes to sex, anybody could get it, right? So the let them eat cake thing, that's what it's about for me. Our society set this up, and now we're here. Like BGS covered earlier, um, you have the women thinking that if they marry white men, they take on white men status. And that goes, and actually that what BGS was reading also. It's never been about black women's loyalty to black men. That's what you see screaming out on these pages, right? Whether it was Kenneth Clark or whether it was Bell Hooks, and I've said it. I've said it. It was Shay Sade has said it. I've said it on the breakdown. I've said it on just multiple channels. It's never been about black women's loyalty to black men. That's what they keep on lying and telling themselves, even till this day. Even till this day, black women are going around the internet lying and saying they're too loyal to black men. It's never been about your loyalty. It's because non-black men, primarily white men, specifically white men, are anti-black as hell. They're racist as hell. And so many of you, I don't know what's gone on over the past 50 years, maybe because you have access to them at work, or maybe because now they're having way more sex with you openly, y'all think that's going to actually translate into a marriage. And it's not. When BGS covered that, when he was reading, all I kept on telling myself was like, yeah, it's never been about black women's loyalty to black men. It's always been because the white, and like what BGS was reading earlier, white men know that they have access to you sexually easily, right? And I'm not trying to call black women necessarily easy, but I'm saying the white guys know they know their position in this society. You know their position, so you give them sex and sexual access way easier than you do black men. Let's be honest, and they know that, and they do what they do with you, hoping not to get you pregnant, and then they run out the back door. And now, when I meet him in his mid 30s, he's gonna tell me about the one or two black women that he's banged while he's married to his white wife, right? It was never about your loyalty to black men. It was always that white men were too damn racist. I'm not even talking about your weight yet, because there's white dudes that will pipe a heavy set sister. I'm not even speaking about your attitude. Because if I gotta be super crass, I'm sorry, let me be super crass. There's men that like that shit. White men too. They feel like they're taming you. When you're attitudinal and you got all that sass and whatever, especially he's a regular corny white dude, when he's shoving his member down your throat, he's feel like he's taming you. You want to know how I know? Because they've said it. So it's not even about your weight or your attitude. They were never planning to marry you. What's the interracial marriage rate right now amongst black women? Before we control for married black women. Once again, let me say this just in case anyone's listening. When you speak about black women that are married, 12% of black women that are married to non-black men. So whether it's a white guy, an Asian guy, a Latino guy, an indigenous guy, or otherwise, right? Okay. When you speak about all marriageable age black women, so I think marriageable age, I think depending starts from 16 to death, right? When you speak about all marriageable age black women, only 4% of them, right, are married outside of the race. Now, I've been hearing numbers that are closer to 5% or 5.5, whatever, but it's still way low in the single digits, right? Now, why that matters. Y'all want to tell me only 4 or 5% of black women have had or are currently having sex with non-black men? Or do y'all believe only 12% of black women, if we want to speak about the married ones, the ones that are married interracially, y'all want to say only 12%? Shit. Let's be nice. You want to say only 15% of black women have had sex with or are going to have sex with or are currently having sex with non-black men, particularly white men? Because black women could say, well, we don't marry all the black guys we have sex with. Yeah, but that marriage rate is still some, you know, after your, I think they, when they count after 40 or 45, some 40% or 30 something percent of black women have been married, something like that. So your marriage rate still clips with, when after a certain age, your marriage still clips over, 25, 30, 40%, something like that, somewhere between 25 and 40%, right? So, once again, black women, it was never about your loyalty to black men. The reason why you find yourself in these weird positions is because, like I stress all the time, you think you're better than your black male counterparts. Non black women, I know I said non black women, non black women still don't want to really be in relationship with black women. So we're talking about L, right? L, so lesbian black women, excuse me, lesbian Non-black women, so lesbian, white women, Asian women, Latina women, still don't really want to be in relationship with black women. So you think you're better than your black male counterparts. Lesbian, non-black women are still racist as hell, and then non-black men are still anti-black and racist as hell. So that leaves black women in an interesting position. Either be single or be in same-sex relationships with black women. Or air quotes, settle for a black guy that you think you're better than. Right? This is why black women find themselves in this interesting position. So Paris Milan and all those other people could kick rocks with that black women have been too loyal to black men. Y'all could kick rocks with that. It's not true and it's never been true. The truth is that white racist guys will have sex with y'all. It's like going uphill, right? They'll have sex with just about any black woman. Then the farther up you get into being seen in public and calling you their girlfriend, that happens less. And then when you get all the way up to what the gold standard is, marriage, that happens way less. That's the truth. And it's been borne out in our society since slavery, but really, obviously, interracial marriage was illegal since Loving versus Virginia in 1967. We have what over now we're working on what 55 years of data that shows that most white guys are not interested in even the ones that are. And the reason why that matters because everybody's like, why do you focus on this swirler divester stuff so much? It trickles down into your community and your society. That power dynamic and that kind of racial, sexual tension and back and forth between black women and white men and black women and black men, that trickles down in our society, right? I won't say all black women because I don't think that's true. But a lot of black women in the back of their mind is the white man gold standard. It's not just the I could have did better with another black man. It's the I could have did better if I didn't even date or marry a black man in the first place. And a part of me, just to, if I had the Thanos glove, a part of me wonders what would happen if I Thanos snapped black men out of America and didn't allow for black men from Africa or the Caribbean to enter America for a good decade or two. What would happen? All these black women, all these LGBTQ black women, all these black women and luxury black women, all these divestors, swirlers, all of these non-black men build. And what have black men built? All those type of women. All right. All of those, the real issue is black men. And if we could just kind of get rid of them or show that we don't want them or we don't rely on them. And what would happen if, not for a day or two, no, 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 not even for a year, if it looked like black men were never coming back? You Thanos and all black women right now currently in this environment that's pregnant with a black boy, Thanos snap. Now you're gonna have a black girl. Like black men just disappeared. Black women woke up tomorrow morning and all black men were gone. I wonder, would that interracial marriage rate for black women and white dudes and Latino dudes and Asian dudes go up? Right? The swirlers and divestors, after they stop celebrating in the streets, how would their life really change? Would white guys take them more seriously now? Well, now that we know black men are not here, Now I could show you how much we really always loved you. It was just that the black man was in the way. I didn't know if you liked me or not because, we always saw y'all with black men and y'all looked like y'all was so loyal to them. Is that what we think would happen? That's my question for all of those black women. That's my question for Mahogany Pink, for Lexus Exodus, for hashtag Black Woman, right? For all of you. If I Thanos snapped black men away from America right now, and it did, I'm not talking about for a day or two or a week or two or a month or two. They're gone. But y'all think a significant, it's not going to be all. So we already know that. Most likely not most. But you think enough white men and maybe a cobble of them, right? Enough white men, Latino men, Asian men, whoever, would just, all right, black men are gone. Okay, now we could take care of all these black women that we've been secretly fiending for. Right? Black women are so much better off now that black men are gone. That's what we think would happen. The society, the overall country would just with open arms be like, all right, black men are gone now. The only reason we ever kept our foot on your neck is because of those Negroes over there. And Negroes is not the word they would be saying. That's not the word they would be using. Is that what we think would happen? We've always wanted to open you with open arms or welcome you with open arms. But those Negroes were always in the way. And we had to step on you because your skin was associated to their skin. But now that they're gone, right? I just kept on thinking to myself, listening to Sagar and Crystal, and I'm sorry, y'all, for the background, right? I just kept on thinking to myself, this is what many women wanted. And particularly as a black man, I'm just thinking about woman after woman after woman after woman, black women, of course, either not realizing or realizing it and not caring and hoping that they were not affected by it. Not real, like, this is what came with what you asked for. This is the other side of it. You wanted the thumb on the scales for you. You wanted access to these particular jobs. You wanted access to certain colleges and universities, and you got it. But I think the thing is, like, they thought that they could escalate without that ever having an effect on men and boys, especially their future intimate prospects, right? And clearly that's not the case. And that's before we include race. That's another thing. When I was listening to Dr. Johnson's stream the other night, and he was speaking about how this is even affect how more and more white boys are even being suspended from school, I thought to myself, y'all talking about no struggle love, and y'all think y'all only talking about black men. It's going to be, because it's very possible you're going to see this reflected more and more in my lifetime. Y'all are afraid about some random pookie sleeping on your couch. What about them white pookies? Or not even just a white pookie. Because black girls and women are girls and women, and they've been able to kind of, they're not elevating as much as the white women are, but they're getting their few crumbs from the table. You're going to outpace a lot of white guys too. Obviously, because of the help of the system. So unless you're going to pay for these white guys, because you already feel like you're better than the black male counterparts. That's why I'm not even mentioning black young men and men right now. I'm not going to mention the Asians because they're really not interested in black women. That's why I rarely mention the Asian guys, because the numbers are just infant. They're just they're so infinitesimally small. It's not even a point in. They're sample negative, right? So I don't. There's no point. It's the white dudes and the Latino dudes. So women in general find themselves in an interesting position, especially under the age of 40. But then black women in particular, because the numbers don't reflect what many of you are saying, and then they're only getting worse, at least by your standards, even when you look at your interracial prospects, right? So, like, I guess more and more black women are going to have to be okay with them coming in with the money, and then I guess the white guy, because he's simply white, coming in with white guy status, even if he makes less than her, right? But I guess some of you, because of your obsession with white skin, you are okay with paying. You don't want struggle love when it comes to black men, but you're okay with earning more than your white male counterpart because he's a white man. And I guess his skin color is the status. So you're okay with you earning some $60,000 a year and him earning some $40,000 a year because he is a white man, right? It's just interesting how these things are going right now. Once again, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat, right? So I was thinking about that, the let them eat cake, and you know, how is this supposed to work? Because I don't want to see, and it's already happening. I don't want to see these kind of relationships, kind of nuclear relationships, become something reserved for the elite, right? Like I keep on stressing, upper middle class and above, especially in I want us to, and it's gonna be messed up I say this. Um, I don't want us to take for granted that we know these things and most people don't. You speak to most people, and you will see them always prescribe character flaw to their exes and their ex-husbands and ex-boyfriends and whatever. You will see women always prescribe character flaw and what he wasn't doing and what he didn't want to do and what he didn't pay for and he was immature and blah 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 and yada 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 yada. And I've experienced this. It's interesting when you then come to them with the money conversation. That's when it gets interesting, right? That's when it gets interesting. When you're like, yeah, but actually, what all the data shows, and I love doing that with the data shows, right? What the data shows is actually like the number one reason for divorce in America is money and financially related. And yes, correlation is not causation, but women fall for like 70 to 80% of divorces. And you just leave that there. Just leave that there. Right? Yeah, you could tell me the problem is that your ex-husband didn't want to help around the house, and he wasn't really good as a dad, and he barked at you too many times, and he left the toilet seat up way too many times, and blah blah blah. You could tell me all of that, right? He had a slight drinking problem, and I'm not gonna say fine. All of those things are true, cool, whatever. But the number one reason for divorce in America is financial, and women file for like 70 to 80% of divorces. So even, especially for black women, oh, they want to talk about character flaws in black men. Oh, do they want? Oh man. But once again, and once again, all that loyalty talk crap. You're leaving because he's not living up to your delusional ass standards when it comes to money and lifestyle. So let's put that out there now. The majority of women, before we even speak about just black women, y'all are divorcing because of the money issue. And the money issue is probably, he either lost his job or you thought upward mobility was infinite and he hit a plateau. Or he can't live up to your delusional ass air quotes standards, right? That's the part nobody want to mention. Well, let me take that back. We'll talk about it in these spaces, but outside of the black manosphere and maybe the overall manosphere, nah. Nobody want to tell the women they sound delusional. Right? You go throughout all the no one wants to say the women sound I think once Anna Kasparian kind of touched on a little bit. Anna Kasparian is the white woman on TYT. She did kind of tell the women, "Hey, calm it down a little bit." Outside of her, as a kind of big name, I'm not talking about the white woman that wrote Men on Strike and all of that. I'm not talking about them or girl rights what. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about big, like known names, kind of mainstream. Outside of Anna, no women. I can anybody tell me they've heard any woman say that anywhere? Whether conservative or liberal, whether you're watching MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, Newsmax, ABC, MSNBC. I mean, have y'all ever heard any woman say, "Yeah, we're sounding crazy"? Right? Because I haven't. Right? There we go. Yeah. But yeah. So we find ourselves in this place. And this does affect your society because the gender divide is becoming excruciatingly painful. It's showing itself in our overall society. And you know, a couple years ago, because I really do believe that systems, how they affect women, and when for those of you that remember me speaking about being institutionalized, and when we speak about being institutionalized, we almost always think about prisoners, and then in the black community, obviously we think about black men. When we think about institutionalized, we think about brothers that's been in prison for some 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years and how they're institutionalized. And I tied that to college and university and how, when somebody goes to a really good college or university, we call it a prestigious institution. And I'm saying those people are also being institutionalized. And so if you are a black woman who's been in college or university for some 4, 6, 8 years post high school, you also have been institutionalized. So when I think about black women speaking and how it's kind of seeped into the culture, because it's not just college educated black women that are sounding like this. When I think about neoliberalism, which is pretty much putting a market valuation on everything, I think about the video that BGS put out a couple years ago where he was speaking about, I don't know if it was a survey or something, where they asked black women and they were asking white women and different other races of women, different questions about relationships and masculinity and manhood. And black women were the ones that consistently pretty much put money over everything and like had somewhat of an archaic concept of manhood and masculinity, believe it or not. Even though they vote Democrat more than anybody else in the country, their concept of men being a provider was way more stringent than even white women. And so that's kind of what BGS was stressing. And I'm tying that to what I'm saying about neoliberalism and black women being institutionalized. If black women brag about them being the most college educated group of people, and really it's college enrolled, and I don't even know if that's 100% true anymore either, but okay, cool. Then that means per capita you're the most institutionalized. So could that also be affecting the way you see manhood and masculinity in this kind of neoliberal order, right? Let's think about the question I'm asking. If black women are the most educated, cool, okay. Black women are the most educated in the society, which means they're the most institutionalized through the education system. And if we live in a neoliberal society, then what does that then mean for the way black women assess men in general and then black men specifically? Right? Because the question, I mean, what's beautiful about the internet, and when you kind of see these questions going around, is the gender war just the internet thing? No, it's exaggerated on the internet. Definitely, though, that's 100% true. People ain't walking up to others of the opposite sex and talking to them this type of crazy in person. So yes, on the internet, it's so much more exaggerated. But no, it's not just the internet. These are real people who think and feel these things. And yes, sometimes they're trolling, both men and women, of course. But these are real people. And so, like I said before, these are real people you're interacting with, namely the women, who have a neoliberal assessment of men and masculinity. And they've been institutionalized to think of you a particular way. And what you're finding more and more is that black women have way more in common with white racist society and how they view you as a black man than anyone wants to admit. Black men don't want to admit it, even though we're doing it more and more. White racist society, because they're playing a very dangerous game, don't want to admit it. And black women don't want to admit it, even though the swirlers and divestors are the loudest about it. But relative to the black women population, the card carrying swirlers and divestors are a handful of women, right? Especially the ones that are on the internet. That's a handful of women. But more women don't want to admit, black women in particular, don't want to admit how much they see men as a utility. Right. It also speaks to this concept of, excuse me, being objectified, right? And you hear women speak about this, especially women on the left, political left, even black women on the political left, speak about being objectified and how bad it is and how negative it is. And yet these same women oftentimes view men as walking wallets and overglorified guard dogs. So they don't want to be objectified for their bodies, but they have no problem objectifying men as essentially a status symbol, a walking wallet or overglorified guard dog, right? And like that's what manhood has boiled down to. And I guess what many women are saying in our society now, and I've said this before, I've used this car analogy before, is if I can't have the S-Class Benz, then I don't want the Camry. So I think what has happened with a lot of older men, and you saw this with Steve Harvey, tap dancing for women when he was talking about dating and first dates and all this other stuff, and how it's a man's job to pay for everything. And women have never paid for anything around me. And all of that shit sounds cute, especially for how old is Steve? In his 60s or 70s? All of that sound cute for somebody who was probably born in like 1950, right? Or late 40s or something like that. That sounds cute. I would love to make Steve Harvey a black man, 35 years old, working a regular job, a regular $45,000 a year job, and let's see him talk after I let him live that life for a year, right? Let's see him talk then. So he could see how women sound and how they take advantage of him on dates and how they're doing foodie calls and all type of foolishness, right? These people are so out of date when it comes to a lot of these things. You know, like, share, subscribe, hit the super chat. Super chats will be read out loud, right? They're so out of date with these things. And so, and I'm tying that to something I know, look, like I went way off when I mentioned Steve Harvey. These people think that what these women are really asking for is stability, right? And when they hear the few women that say stability, they think they actually mean really just stable. They don't think these women mean extravagant. And I think that's what annoys me, right? These older guys, the brothers around BGS and Black Uru's age that are not part of the Black manosphere, even the white guys that are not part of the manosphere, when they hear women speak about stability and just wanting a man that's not in the way and not a burden and that could handle himself and maybe look out for her every once in a while, they take those women at their word. Now, for some of us brothers, 50 and younger, 40 and younger, we know when she stays stable, she mean extravagant. Rest in peace, Kevin. Kevin showed you that when he would let the women talk about what they won't settle for and what they want and money stuff and everything, and you just heard those women, regardless of race, over and over again, keep on describing six-figure lifestyles. And I think our society is having a real difficult time because our society does not want to accept that your daughters would rather be single. Your daughters would, enough of them, not all, maybe not even most, but enough of them are doing okay enough to say opulence or nothing. And I think when somebody like me says that, so many people want to dismiss and poo-poo what I'm saying because you have a real difficult time believing that your daughter rather be single, rather be crying in her apartment by herself with her toy, her dog, her ice cream, and a Lifetime movie playing in the background than be with a regular 45, 40, $50,000 a year man. You refuse to accept that your daughter would rather be in the situation I described than be with your standard issue 45, $50,000 a year man that's under 6 feet and that doesn't have cheese grater abs, right? You refuse to accept that. And what I'm saying is your daughter would rather be single. Yeah, she's crying. Yeah, she's alone. And yes, even she might even occasionally have sex with the guy that's air quotes not up to par by her standards. But she's not taking him seriously for any relationship. It's it's the dream guy or nothing. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that in a vacuum. I don't even think there's anything wrong with that if a small minority of women think like that, which is what we've always had, throughout not even Western society, more modern Western society. We've always had a handful of women that said, "Oh, it's either this or nothing," and you can accommodate that when it's a handful of women. But when you take what we have now, you add capitalism and consumerism and materialism, and that number starts to shoot through the roof, right? Or even when it becomes a large minority of women that think like that, a third of women that think like that, 40% of women that think like that. But to me, it don't even have to be most or all. It just has to be a critical mass of women like that think like that, and it upends your society. And I would argue that's where we are now. That's what I was trying to tie to. That's why I mentioned Steve Harvey earlier. Because they really think these women are just looking for stability and not opulence. And what Steve Harvey said in that same video I'm describing is essentially, well, if they can't find it, then they should kind of essentially he was telling the men, stop trying to go out with women you can't afford. In that case, if we're going by Steve Harvey standards, now I'm not talking about what we're really experiencing. If we're going by Steve Harvey standards, most men can't afford none of these women anyway. Then people keep on throwing out these cutesy one-liners and then don't even think about what you're really saying. Once again, because you think the women are actually asking for stability. Once again, I'm not speaking about all, maybe not even most, but a sizable minority. So we get here. And these things don't exist in a vacuum. So what I'm saying, it's not just in a vacuum where like, okay, so this is just dating and it doesn't affect education, it doesn't affect the economy, it doesn't affect your population. It affects all of those things. So that little thing about women saying they want stability, but many of them actually meaning opulence, it doesn't just stay there. That's more women not having kids. That's more women not getting married. That's more women not buying homes because they can't afford it by themselves. Right? Then that also affects your men because more and more of your men are throwing their hands up and being like, yeah, I can't afford the women. I'm tired of being a trick, saving up how much money to take a girl out on a date and maybe take her on enough dates to maybe get lucky and have sex. Nah. Right. A lot of your society is just, that's the problem. And then your sons are becoming despondent, and y'all don't really have an answer for that except for shaming them. Right. So there's that. And like I said, I like BGS's presentation. It was pretty good. It was really good actually. And it's gonna put to rest a lot of what a lot of people are saying, because a lot of people just talking out of their rear ends. Excuse me. That's why I mentioned Paris Milan earlier. Just everyone is a Dusty. Every man, it's like, who isn't a Dusty? Who isn't a Dusty? That's why y'all looking real sick right now. Because so many men to women are Dusties. And that's why I'm careful when I say like these things, like when you hear people say like so many men, most men aren't on women's level. Do you know what that means for you in your dating prospects? Think about what you're saying. Whenever women say that, and it's not even just a black woman thing, I'm like, do you know what you just said? I think that when people say that, when women say that, all I hear is like main character plot armor. Like, most men ain't ish, but because I'm the main character on planet Earth, I'll be okay because I'm gonna end up with one of those men that are all of that. It's so foolish. You walk in the door, especially if you're a black woman, saying black men are not on black women's level. Black men are trash. Black men, losers. They're conquered. Blah blah blah. They're secretly on the DL. Blah blah blah. And it's just less and less and less and less and less black men that you're interested in. Okay, most black men are dusties. Okay, cool. They're creepers. They're this. They're immature. All right, that's just right. You're open to interracial relationships. Blah blah blah. To the best, you're open to the best man and all of that. Okay, cool. And you've been saying that since you were 23, 24, when you first started listening to Chrissy or Paris Milan or whoever, and now you're 30. Well, that didn't go too well. Still single, dated some black guys, dated some Latino guys, dated some white guys. Don't got much of anything to show for it though. What did you think was going to happen? Look on the way you speak about the opposite sex, primarily black men. Because that main character syndrome thing makes you think that you're going to be the one to survive even the negative things you think about the opposite sex. That's why I'm care. That's why I'm careful how I speak to black women. That's why I always say maybe not all, maybe not most. I think it's a sizable minority. Blah blah blah. That think like this, that move like this, or the numbers reflect that. Right. My whole argument has been we've hyper focused on the men over the past 50 years, and we've let women and girls get away with murder because we always kept on telling ourselves they're justified in acting this way and speaking this way and feeling this way and thinking this way. And now you have two, three generations of full blown asshole women. Boomers, well, four actually. Boomers, Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. But really, Xer, millennial, and Gen Z women, complete assholes. And all you've done is hyper focus on your sons. Meanwhile, y'all don't even like being around your own daughters. Oh, I wasn't supposed to say that out loud. You, as a mother, don't even like being around your daughter. She's an asshole. She's sassy. She's rude. And you think a man is supposed to marry someone you, as her mother, can't even be around for too long. Y'all explain that to me. That's another thing I found interesting throughout my life. Women that don't like being around their moms, but then they don't realize why they can't keep a man. Bitch, you're like insufferable to everyone. Don't worry, when your kids get old enough, they're not gonna want to be around you either. Let me take that back. They don't want to be around you now. They're just relying on you. But once they get out of their young adulthood, by the time they hit 26, 27, and they can finally start really doing for themselves, you're going to barely see your children because they don't want to be around you either. We all know that aunt or that older cousin, or maybe one of your boys, their mother, nobody go visit her really. Her own kids don't visit her. Her ex-husband curse her every time he thinks about her. Right? There are people that are just difficult to get along with. And they never really think, God, I haven't been able to keep a friendship for more than 5 years. My marriage only lasted 3 years. My mom don't like me. I don't like my mom. My kids barely come and visit me. Right? See, when that's a man, then everybody knows what that is, right? Don't we have women bragging about all these men that pass in these nursing homes, or nobody really comes and visit them in the nursing homes? So you trying to tell me that that's not a thing for women at all, right? Or is it that we have a soft spot for the women, and so grandma gets to live with us until she passes, but ain't none of us gonna really talk about how we really don't. Grandma's a she's a handful. I'll be nice because I'm not gonna talk crazy about older women like that, but grandma's a handful. And nobody want to be honest that we giving grandma a pass because she's grandma. Grandma gets to say and do things we would never let granddad get away with. Granddad would be in a nursing home. Y'all don't want to talk about that, huh? That's what we are. It's not looking good, right? So yeah, so this mismatch was everything. This, you know, it's just insane right now. What's going on in society right now, and I really think these relationships are they're crucial. I think the people that say one of the most important decisions you will ever make is who you want to spend the rest of your life with. I agree with them. That person can make life just a little bit easier or more difficult. I agree with them. I agree with them. I've been in my relationship for a couple years now, and it's true. If we were arguing all the time and whatever, my life would be a whole lot more difficult, you know? And I think honestly, I think she feels like that too. It's it's true. And there are people that they're insufferable, they make your life difficult, and then they wonder why you're not flying. What? Right? They wonder why you're not flying when they're always attempting to clip your wings by their words or their actions. Right? So shout out to all of y'all that's listening still. Can't believe I got people listening. Y'all sleeping on me? Y'all listening. All right. And I'm also doing this at this time of night. I might start doing these a little bit more often also. It's because months ago actually, um I can't remember whose channel I was on, and one of the brothers in the comments specifically pointed me out. Was like, Z, there's a spot for like late night, convos and stuff. And yeah. Brother said some of the West Coasters are still up. Oh yeah, y'all 3 hours behind, so it's like one something over there, right? AO said I'm listening. What's going on, AO? Right? No, yeah, AO was this two something in Texas, huh? All right. But yeah, so I mean, yeah, this is I don't know how much of y'all are like y'all agree with what I'm saying, or if it just sound like rambling, but y'all just bored. But no, I like I said, I really think these things matter. I'm not just here just to. Oh, Detroit said I'm still up. Yeah, I'm not just saying these things just to say. I think these things really matter, and I think we're seeing how much they really matter. How much they really can you compartmentalize some of these things? Hell yes, but these things are intertwined, bro. These things are like linked, right? Marriage is linked to married and people that get married, you could tie that to economy because you could tie that to homes, and you could tie that to new cars. You could tie that to education. You could tie that to taxes, to policy, all of that. And it's all falling to shambles because we're about 50 or so years into, excuse me, 50 or so years into people thinking that these relationships don't matter. Some women, I mean, excuse me, some men, but a lot of women thinking like, screw that, right? And like I keep on stressing, more and more of your young women in particular saying all or nothing. All of the things on my list are nothing. Y'all remember? Was it the Oprah? Was it Oprah? Was it Steve? Yeah, because Steve Harvey was on Oprah, where they had the what? The I think it was three black women and three or four black women, and they were talking about their list, and like they're not giving up their list, or like, and one of them said, "Yeah, I kind of gave up some of the things on my list, height requirement, and this and that," and they were giggling. Then I remember the other segment of black single women, and one of them, none of them were particularly ugly, but one of them, the lighter skinned sister, she was really pretty, and I think she said she hadn't been in a relationship in how long? I'm talking about things that like aired like a decade plus ago, by the way, especially for some of you brothers that are a little bit younger. Y'all, the other brothers in here might know exactly the segments I'm talking about because y'all done seen them too. But it was a segment. It was covered by the one of the ladies on CNN, white lady on CNN, and they kind of, speaking of black women, it was one sister, and they spoke to her, and she was the to me she was the cutest one. And no, I'm not a colorist. It's not because she was light skinned, but she was the cutest one, and they asked her, have you ever considered? I think they asked her, have you ever considered marrying, dating out? Excuse me. And she said like there was this one time at a bar where she was making Google eyes with a white dude, but nothing metastasized out of that or whatever. Nothing came out of that. And I just thought to myself, like, here you have, standard, everyday, average looking sisters, none of them particularly ugly, all the way to a pretty cute sister. And like, y'all all been single for a minute. And by the way, I think all of those women were Xers. So this wasn't even like millennials. These were Xers, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say they were Xers because I remember watching that clip over a decade ago, maybe. Yeah, it had to be. We're in 2022. That clip got to come from like, I want to say it was even before 2010. Yeah, I think it was before 2010. Detroit, you know what clip I'm talking about? Right? It was like three or four women, black women, maybe five. And CNN did a little segment on like, and the white lady trying to like act like she really cared, like how sad it is that so many black women, educated black women, are single and finding it hard to find love and whatever, how she framed it. And yeah, man. No, you're right, brother. Men shouldn't have to defend who and what they find attractive. That's true. That's true, right? But yeah, so, and that was Xers. What I'm arguing is millennials. It got worse. Millennials, it got worse. And from what I'm hearing from the oldest of Gen Z, even worse. How you have these women that are successful, none of them necessarily ugly. I don't think any of them had kids. I'm not sure. Right? We're gonna Xers are like, to me, Xers are the first generation of a sizable portion of them, women in particular, never being married and never having children. It's going to be exaggerated for millennials. And from what I'm seeing with Gen Z, whew, boy, Katie bar the doors. Act like there's a tornado coming. Run into the basement or into your shelter or wherever, because I know when, man. I mean, like, look, I'm 36. I have no children. I know a number of women my age, a little bit older and a little bit younger, no children. No, and not just no children, no children, not in a relationship, no potential relationship prospects. Maybe they got a little situationship where the guy come through, knock the cobwebs out every couple weeks. Maybe. Yes, there are definitely women out here, out here doing things. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, there are women out here, but I keep on telling y'all, AL, remember me, right? Because I think AL is the brother that's probably been hearing Mr. Z speak the longest. AL, remember me coming in the door telling everyone, nah, hey, don't get it twisted. Yeah, there's black women out here getting it in, but way more black women than y'all think haven't had sex for years on end. Mr. Z, I'm not. I think I was one of the first, if not the first brother, walking in the door saying, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, y'all keep on talking about the women out here doing everything. Don't be surprised. A lot of women, I'm specifically talking about black women, haven't had sex in years, and it's not just about the sex. All of the things that come with that, the intimacy, the feeling of somebody really giving a damn about you, the relationship that might come out of that, all of that." The looking forward to seeing this person, to being with this person, all the positive chemicals that are released when y'all do have sex, right? And I was, I was a, well, I wasn't a kid, but when that came out, I was way younger. And I remember I watched that segment probably 3 times back to back because I was like, wait a minute, what? None of these were, they were older than me, but by distance. But I was like, none of these women are ugly and they're successful. They shouldn't be having problems. And like a few of them weren't trying to be exclusively with black men either. So they shouldn't necessarily be having problem. Now, that was a while ago. We don't know if any of those women got married or had children and, continue to have a family, but you know, I'm also reminded of a segment I think Yvette Carnell played years ago, and I think even Army Osei Frimpong was still, that's the funky academic. He's been on Breaking Points a couple times. He's also been on The Hill. He's been interviewed by a couple of people. He's a black lefty. Um, they covered a segment at one point of a sister that did she used to work for the UN, and I think she was single and childless, and either she was about to lose her house, or like she was like almost, because she tried opening her own business that sold African kind of African art or African inspired something, and standard issue, middle age or older black woman, and I don't think she had ever been married, and she didn't have children, and I'm just, you know I'm yes, I'm a millennial, and yes, I grew up seeing a couple of black women with no children, um, and even less, obviously, that never been married and didn't have any children. But to me, the rate is what's interesting, right? Because obviously I grew up, around boomers. Um, my dad is a boomer, right? Um, a Haitian boomer, but he's a boomer, right? So I grew up with boomers and Xers, and I'm a millennial, so obviously I grew up with millennials, and it's just staggering watching, being in my mid 30s and watching how many of us are childless, never been married. That's one thing, right? But then also don't have any type of like prospects, right? Like, you do realize that a decade ago, a decade and a half ago, like the Xers that were our age were getting divorced at my age, right? They had been married for 7, 8, 9, 10 years by my age. They already had like a kid or two by my age, or three, and they were already getting divorced. I haven't even been married once yet, right? And that's for the Xers that did get married, obviously. But even for the ones that didn't, by my age, they at least had one kid, most likely two or three. And we're not even mentioning the boomers yet, right? Right? There are Xers and boomers that on my age were already on their second marriage and might have had a kid in that second marriage already, right? They got married at 24, 25, got divorced by 32, 33, and by 36 they were remarried with another kid that was outside of the first. So the first marriage they had one or two kids, and then the second marriage they already had a second kid at 36. We just live in a different time, right? That's crazy to me, right? So yeah, so just I don't. What does it mean for society when 15, 20, 25% of your society, but they said a third of your men under the age of 30 haven't had sex for a year or more, and a sizable portion of your female population, it's similar. It may not be a third, but it's pretty high still. It's a large minority, 25% or something, right? Because that doesn't mean no one's having sex. Once again, it doesn't even mean most people aren't having sex, but enough people aren't. Because remember, it's not just about the sex, everyone. It's about the intimacy, it's about the relationship, it's about the feeling of being wanted, maybe even needed, right? So it's not just, oh, Mr. Z just talking about the sex, and no. When a sizable portion of your young people have no prospects right now, they're not speaking to anyone, they're not dating anyone, they're not having sex with anyone, right? No children on top of that. What does that mean for your society? And what does that mean for their politics? Because I think our politics are different when we have children, when you want to see your child grow up in a safer, better world, right? When you think about what world am I leaving for this person that I've invested time, energy, money, everything, emotions into. I want to leave this person in the best position possible, compared to I'm probably going to pass by myself, or I don't ever want to have children, right? You know what, brother? Let me read that. Pensive says the the A in LGBTQIA is going to swell in number, in my opinion. Some, not all of these people will embrace asexuality. That kind of speaks to the Nameless Protagonist. By the way, if you're not subscribed to the Nameless Protagonist, check out his page. That kind of speaks to his Hive model. And it speaks to the Mouse Utopia project, right? So yeah, what you're saying, we've spoken about that in this space. Yeah, I can't disagree with you, right? Asexuality, and I think a lot of them are going to take a pit stop in the LGBTQ, probably the L part and the B part of LGBTQ, obviously the Q part of LGBTQ. Um, yeah, and that speaks to the power of the mind, right? That speaks to the power of the mind. I remember a video I watched. This was years ago, and I so regret not saving it or, storing it somewhere. Dr. Umar Johnson, after giving a lecture, he was still on stage, and a sister stood up and she was speaking about her sexuality, and she was saying she's lesbian, but she's not lesbian because she thinks she was born this way. She said she was lesbian because she's never had a good relationship with men, and she made a conscious choice. I want anybody that's LGBTQ to listen to what I'm saying. I am not making this story up. Once again, I am not making the story up. A black woman stood up after Dr. Umar Johnson's lecture and said, I am lesbian because I made a conscious choice because I've never been in a good relationship with a black man. So speaking to what Pensive just said, that speaks to, but then there's a white woman, what is her name? She was part of the documentary I covered about radical feminism. And she did something on the Big Think um years ago. This was maybe like a decade ago, maybe a little bit less than a decade ago. And she essentially kind of reinforced that, like, you can you can tell yourself who to love. You can tell yourself who to like, right? And she doesn't mean like just the opposite sex. She mean like, no, you can make yourself love the same sex, right? She believes that those things are fluid. And that, to me, I think the best way to say is interesting. I'll say it like that for now. Because I think we're witnessing other people believe that also, even if they don't want to own they believe that. Because if you are so mad at the opposite sex, and I'm specifically talking about the women here, that you engage in asexuality, because I mean, like, if you, wouldn't we call it asexuality when you haven't been in an intimate relationship or haven't had sex going on 5 and 6 and 7 years, right? Or when you find yourself to be a 30-year-old plus virgin, right? Wouldn't, like, I mean, yeah, you might like, air quotes, men, but like, if you 30, 32 and never had sex, or if you haven't had sex in 5, 6 years, 7 years, yeah, you could claim you like men, and there's men that you find attractive, and there maybe there's women you find attractive as a woman. But if you haven't engaged in anything sexual in that long, and then, like I was saying earlier, that speaks to the power of the mind. If you can be so headstrong about your supposed standards, your air quote standards and what you're not willing to accept and no struggle love and whatever, that you find yourself in this type of predicament. It could speak to you being socially awkward. It could speak to you. I mean, I can't even say you don't have the chance to meet someone. Like there's that, unless you live in like BFE with like a population of 7, I don't see how anyone can really go that long without forming some type of intimate connection with someone enough to have sex with them, like to be in that type of intimate relationship with someone like that. Right? Pensive said, you can see this in comics. They are queer bending popular characters to catch the young audience, but they aren't connecting and are selling poorly. Yeah. They did this with Superman's son and Tim Drake Robin. Yeah, 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 yep. Well, that's because they're trying, to me now, here's my argument. That's because they're trying this too early. They're gonna revisit this again in another 5 or so years, right? And when you have the younger Gen Z who kind of seen these things already, right? And when you have the alpha as they get older, oh yeah, they'll be way more apt to kind of accept this. And that's scary because that means you can slowly socialize the society for a particular type of outcome and to be more accepting. And that means that you're slowly socializing the society towards that kind of pansexual environment, right? And maybe older Gen Z, millennials, Xers, because boomers are getting older and older now, so like they're not going to be around really to kind of see what we're describing. They're already seeing the beginnings of it, but you know, but for us, especially millennials and Xers, as we get older, we're going to see, yeah, millennials and Xers, as we get older, we're going to see more and more people engaging in kind of pansexual relationships, right? And polyamory and all of that. So one man and multiple women knowingly, yes, believe it or not, one woman and multiple men knowingly, um, men dating, openly dating men, trans women, and the sort, and women openly dating trans men, trans women, straight men. Well, not straight, but like, you know, natural born women, natural born men. I think that could become a thing, right? I think that could become a thing. What's going on? I'm listening. You know, as y'all come in, hit the like button, right? Like, share, subscribe, hit that super chat, right? I think that's a possibility. I think that's a possibility. Where, I mean, where do you? So, are the days of nuclear families done? And the only people that will have them increasingly are the elite. And that doesn't mean that the elite are going to be the only ones. Hmm. That doesn't mean they're going to be the only ones necessarily having sex or anything like that. I mean, I'm thinking about all of the like weird social dystopian movies and TV shows I've watched throughout my life when I'm describing these things. Someone remind me, maybe one of you guys seen this, and anyone could put it in the comments. Do y'all remember seeing a movie or a TV show? It was a TV show, I want to say. Could have been a movie, but I want to say it was a TV show where the elites lived in like this kind of tower in the sky, or like this kind of like sky, like it was kind of a way above Earth's surface, and like they were the ones that all had these like nuclear families, and they were like married and whatever. In the movie, they focused on or the TV show, they focused on this family where eventually we found, at the end, we found out that the wife and the husband betrayed each other, and that's how one of them ended up dead. I can't remember, but like it's because the wife and the husband betrayed each other. But anyway, the concept of like these uber elites and these kind of above ground elite, areas, and like they're the ones with like the nuclear families and the 3 and 4 kids and whatever. And then the people on the ground were like living like in squalor. Dope ass technology, but they're living like in squalor. And that kind of speaks to what Nameless says all the time, where like um in the future, people right now will be living like how upper middle like upper middle class Elysium. Maybe, maybe, right? But yeah, people in the future, poorer people will be living how kind of upper middle class people live now, and then the elites will be living like gods, right? I definitely could see that. I definitely could see that. You know what, pensive? I won't even take that bet. I think you're right. Right. So pensive says prediction: pansexuality plus asexuality would be at least 10% in Gen Alpha. I won't take that. Why would I won't take that bet. I think you're right. I think that's very possible. I think that is very possible. Why not? Right? If we're already seeing people under 30, young men and women under 30, uh, uh, a significant minority of them, not no single digits, right? Double digit, the boys, at least 30% of them not having sex in a year or so plus, you know, and that that's the very youngest of millennials and Gen Z, right? By the time Alpha starts to get to 30 years old in the next what 20 something years, that is very possible. You're talking about 2 decades or so from now. Oh yeah. Because what the oldest Alpha is what 6 years old or something like that? What's the youngest Gen Z? Because the oldest Gen Z I think is like 25, 26 now. Something like that, right? So that means the oldest Alpha is what, like 6, 7 years old? Yeah, so in the next 20 some odd year, oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's 2 decades. I can't tell you how many things I've seen change in 2 decades. When I graduated high school, the hardest phone on the planet was the Motorola Razr. That was the hardest phone on the planet when I graduated high school. And just 2 years later, 3 years later, it was the iPhone 1, which changed the game. And now we're on the iPhone 14 Max. Come on, so like I'm just using that to say like, look how much things have changed in the past 17 or so years since I graduated high school. And when I think about that socially, like when I graduated high school, it was all about MySpace. Facebook was just this little blip on the radar fighting against MySpace and like portraying itself as a more mature, upscale MySpace. Now, Facebook is where old people gather and like where we have certain conversations, but you know, the young kids are on TikTok, on IG, Instagram, right? And Twitch and all these other things, right? Discord and like socially the game has just changed, like the technology. Backup cameras on a car, like that was like so big. I remember when the Lexus LS with 460 came out with those, and it was like, oh my god, they got backup cameras. Oh, they can parallel park themselves now, right? Now you could buy a $25,000 car that could parallel park itself. What's going on, Sir Anthony? That's how crazy our society has gotten. Like the technology is insane, right? Like even when I think like passenger side airbags weren't even mandatory 30 years ago. I know people like 35 years ago, that wasn't a thing. 30 years ago, that was not a thing. Now you got traction control, you got sensors for everything. I'm bringing those things up to say like the social change has been that great just with the technological change. It's not just the technological change. And the technological change has affected the social change. Would internet porn be such a it would be still big, pause. If internet porn would still be, I want to say huge, pause, right? It would still be a serious thing. There we go, right? But it's really the cell phone that changed that. Ain't nobody bringing their big ass laptop into the bathroom with them, but their cell phone, right? So it affects the social change. You get your cell phone, you do whatever you do, blah blah blah, and now you're 23, 25-year old already showing signs of some type of ED, erectile dysfunction, because they've been jacking off for like since they were 15 years old. Like every day, right? And seeing that so many of these young people once again haven't had sex, right? In a decade from 15 to 25 of straight internet porn and potentially not ever having real sex. Once again, that's not all young black men in particular. That might not even be most, but it's still a notable minority, right? You're watching internet porn, you know you might be watching, especially at a young age, you watching people damn jump off the ceiling. So if and when you finally have an opportunity at the real thing at 27, 28, 30, might seem boring, especially after you get that first, okay, okay, so this is what it is in real life, right? So I said all of that. I know people are like, what did that have to do with anything? I'm saying the technological change affects the social change, and vice versa. That's why I brought it up. It didn't come out of nowhere, right? It did. It definitely did not come out of nowhere, and so that affects the way your young people operate. You know, when I listen to some of these when I listen to some of these content creators, I'm specifically talking about the women, and I listen to them live, and I see that they have 1,000, 1,200, 1,300 women listening to them, right? And they have some hundreds of women commenting in the chat box live, and they're all speaking and laughing and giggling about who they think is a dusty and what white man is attractive and what they're not settling for and all type of whatever. That does affect the social change, right? That does affect the social change. This person's a dusty. That person's a dusty. This person is unattractive. That person's unattractive, right? I'm not selling for this. Black women in luxury, right? That affects the overall society. Then you also have the young men who are becoming more and more despondent, and for the good and the bad of it, they're also watching videos of women left and right telling them what they won't settle for. They're watching Fresh and Fit. Fresh and Fit has a younger audience, 25, 27 and younger type audience, right? And those young men are just watching these shallow ass women that, whether they speak well or not, are just materialistic as hell. And I'm tired of people. FD tried to do that too when he just slightly mentioned them. But like, people need to stop acting like these people ain't real people just because they're talking out of their ass. Like, no, these are real ass women. It's not a biased selection necessarily, right? Right? It's not a biased selection. These women are real women. These are real young women, tend to be, that sound this shallow, right? And I could tell you, as a mid-30s male, that doesn't change necessarily. You meet someone that's cool and that ride out with you, and they really riding with you, or you don't. But if you meet one of these women, trust me, she ain't changing for you. That same insanity, that's there to stay. That is there to stay. Right? But yeah, that affects all of that affects the change. The internet has just changed. Like, I come from the days and shout out to the Xers and the boomers, because I know y'all remember this. Obviously, y'all remember this if I do, right? I come from the days of dial-up internet, right? D Scott said 30 minutes behind, late gang. What's going on, D Scott? Right? I come from the days of dial-up internet, right? Insane. So for you kids that are like YouTube streaming, this isn't you. Here go the thing too. Y'all remember when things used to take? Let's go down memory lane a little bit. Xers, boomers, and some of us older Gen Z. Y'all remember when things used to take forever to buffer? So like, even if somebody did send you a video in an email or something like that, it would take forever to buffer and to play, and then it would still stop and then buffer forever, and you could never really get like a smooth video necessarily, and it was super pixelated. Right? That's the era. Like, that is the era. Locked and Loaded said dial up. Yes. AOL. Yes. And then we used to like try to trade AOL cards because they had like the free internet thing. If you had like the free, like, what was it, 1 week subscription or something like that thing, and we were trading that. And people just used to have like a bunch of them stacked up. I remember these things. Pensive says, the way you're describing porn plus cell phones affecting Y and Z basically parallels those young folks not caring whether they're in the matrix. Right, Z? And Locked and Loaded said, right, Mr. Z. But yeah, Pensive, yeah. Yep. And I think it affects society. I mention all of these things because I think they affect the society, and the reason why I care even though I'm in a relationship, even though I'm upwardly mobile, it's because I live in this society. I I I say this. I've said this before, and I don't know how often I say this, but like, there comes a time when being selfish that you got to be selfless because you got to realize that you live on a planet with other people, and sheer undiluted selfishness and self-interest is actually going to harm you, right? When you just have unchecked self-interest, it's actually going to harm you, right? So like, me knowing I live on a planet in a, Western civilization, um in a society, in a country that's all interconnected. I mean, we should have learned that with especially if you didn't learn that with not just the chip crisis, but with this um it was just on the tip of my tongue too. It was, I just had it. Anyway, okay, I lost it. But yeah, if you didn't learn this with this COVID situation, everything's interconnected, right? Then I don't really know what to tell you. It's all connected. Supply chains. That's what I was trying to remember. Thank you. I'm telling myself thank you, right? What's going on, Afro National, right? If you don't realize everything that's been going on, how all of these things are connected, then that's where you mess up. And I think, even tying that back to what we were saying with the women, I don't think they realize how much of these things are connected. I think that's where hyper individuality falls flat. Like, being self interested and being a hyper individualist, it can get you pretty damn far when you take off that kind of, that the weight of worrying about others, thinking about the overall society and community and what's best for other people also, and not trying to be selfish. Yeah, you could, yeah, that's pretty good, but the problem is, the reason why it falls flat is that you then live in a society with other people, and you never thought about their concerns because you never thought their concerns mattered, because you don't think that affects you, and then it does, and that's when it falls flat. And I think that's where the women end up getting screwed, is because they so hyper focus on themselves, or at most other women, and especially in the black community, the black women that only hyper focus on themselves and maybe other black women, and then you got the ones like Chrissy, the colorist queens, that even more focus on dark skinned black women, that they're looking through the world through a straw, and then they wonder why all of these things are falling out the way they do. And I don't, what's interesting about Chrissy is, I don't know how much of that she actually believes in. I think Chrissy found her niche, and so she sells a product that she may or may not believe in, but she found her niche, and the algorithm is paying her handsomely for it. Because I've heard her say things that let me know she realizes she can't escape so much of this. And like, I think when I hear her speak sometimes, when I hear Paris Milan speak, when I hear even Real Talk with Yanni speak, it's as if they made a conscious decision that they're gonna make money off of these women that were gonna be single, lonely, bitter, and angry anyway. And so they're like, well, shit, I mean, I could not make money off of y'all, or I could make money off of y'all, even if you're not gonna donate a super chat or whatever, or a super sticker, I'll still make money off of y'all, off of, monetizing my channel. And then especially when I do lives, and I get whatever money from y'all, from donations or whatever the hell, right? It When I listen to those particular women speak, that's what I hear. it's I'm gonna make money. I'm going all the way in. And then there's a question of being caught up in the web of the algorithm, where, and I've said this before, and I think even FD kind of spoke to this, where, and let me don't put words in his mouth. Let me speak about myself. The algorithm encourages the content creator to sound more radical. So do the subscribers, and then the the content creator speaking more radical then radicalizes the subscribers. So it's like this back and forth with the subscribers radicalizing the content creator by their support of the most enraging content, and then the content creator then creating that more rageful content, which then enrages the subscribers, and then it just keeps on going, right? Right. And like that's kind of frightening, to be honest with you. You know. So yeah, I see that. I definitely see that with some of these how you gonna make your money, these content creators radicalizing the young women. And to be fair, some men doing that also. I won't say whether it's Black Manosphere or the other Manosphere or whatever, but just like enraging content and just angry porn content. And I don't know how that. No, that's definitely. Let me not even say it. Don't know. That's definitely not good for the society, right? And that's even how you get some of January 6th. It's not even just the conversation about men and women. You get that politically also. When we could get into our little echo chambers and then pick what parts of facts we want to engage with, right? Like y'all have heard me say this before. At one point, we can agree this was a table. This is a table. Now we're gonna disagree maybe on what wood it was made out of. We might disagree on what color brown or tan it is. But we see that we both agree that this is a four-legged table. And then the debate starts with all the materials that might have gone into it or the color it is or whatever. Now, we have people that don't even agree that this is a table. We have people that don't even agree that this is a thing or an inanimate object. Because we're so divided in what basic facts are or what they look like that we found ourselves here, right? Thank you, Pensive. Pensive says salute for a thoughtful discussion. Thank you. 5 on the super chat, right? And I think that's where we are now, right? And like the left and the right are engaging in that. The left and the right are engaging in that. And it's interesting to me as a lefty hearing people on the right, mainly because this I won't put on brothers on the right. I'll say this is mainly white people on the right. Like trying to go at people, calling people social justice warriors in as a pejorative. And I'm like, I know y'all ain't talking about social justice warriors. The whole entire Christian right. Y'all want to talk about social justice warriors with me? Right? Social justice warriors. Y'all want to have that conversation? Y'all don't think y'all doing that over there? Right? And it's just the hypocrisy on both sides, but what? If you get banned from Twitter, remember, Twitter is not a public, it's not a government entity. They could ban you. But when people like Jordan Peterson start saying, "Oh yeah, I was banned because I spoke like this and I won't do that," and they're limiting my free speech, Twitter can do that. It's not a government entity. Twitter can do that. And he wasn't banned. I think they threatened him or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, no, they can do that. People always get the freedom of speech thing all type of messed up. Yeah, you can say whatever you want to say. That doesn't mean there's not consequences. Like the government may not be able to come at you, and that's in America. That's for the countries that purport to believe in freedom of speech, right? The government may not. The president can't say go get that guy because he said this, not on paper anyway. But freedom of speech doesn't mean that some privately owned entity can't say, yeah, we don't want you to speak. You're shut off. Right? That's not how that works. Yeah, so it yeah, the yeah, that's just kind of where we are now. Let me see what we got. Locked and loaded said, "Hey, this is more than just a table. This table has personality, yeah, personifying inanimate objects, right? Yeah, that's a thing. I mean, obviously we see it in movies and everything, and books and cartoons and all type of stuff. But pe- people are just weird like that. Like this is something different, right? Yeah, live in a society where people just disagree on things so vehemently. We're getting different type of air quotes facts, right? And even the way things are framed and how they're emphasized and how they're worded distorts the way we see things. I think we need to get to back to a place with like base, boring information. All of this editorializing is just ripping things apart. You can have you can have a perception of something, and then we could start debating on that. But then it's like, to me, like the stale, cold voices on NPR, where they don't even try to emphasize certain words necessarily, right? And but then you compare that to kind of what we see going on MSNBC or like Fox News, right? Or even CNN. And that's the difference, like the editorializing on stuff, and then how we. Okay, I'll give you a prime example. Y'all realize that, and this regardless of whether you're a Trump supporter or not, y'all realize when the election results were being debated, and Fox News kind of conceded, okay, yeah, Trump might have not won. Yeah, we don't think he won. Y'all know that for a split second, Newsmax was getting more traffic for a split second than Fox News, because people wanted confirmation bias so bad that they went to somewhere even more extreme than Fox News on the right, right? Like you see this on the left too, by the way. That's why like MSNBC numbers tend to be a little bit higher than CNN's numbers, because the lefties want something a little bit more left than kind of the center left CNN, right? Like that confirmation bias is real, and I think there's ways to tamp that down, but then there's also ways to kind of stoke that a lot of people engage in. Well, the powers that be engage in, better yet, right? Locked and loaded, killing me right now. Pensive said lots of, excuse me. Pensive said a lot of self righteousness going on right now. Yeah, yep, on both sides. I mean, that's why I made the video earlier. I think was it last week, right? That's why I made the video last week about like being careful how far you're willing to go about spiting other people. How far are you willing to go to spite others? Because some of us we're engaging in some of this just to spite others. Whether it's our political opponent, whether it's the opposite sex, whether it's a different sexuality, whether it's someone we actually know, our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers. We're engaging in a lot of like, back and forth in this way. And sometimes those things even come back and bite us in our own rear end, which only enrages us more and then makes us want to spite these people even more. Right. I think we engage in a lot of political and social myopia when we do that. We're being myopic because we just want to get the other person or the other group of people back, or we want to spite them, and so we advocate or say things or do things that actually might not be in our best interest also, but at least in the short term it hurts those others, right? This is like the culture war that I'm particularly speaking about. And like I've said this before, I think the culture war is being stoked because this is the only way people get a sense of power is by doing like spiteful things or saying spiteful things, because the elites have pretty much locked a lot of upward mobility and like I think the best way to say it is like the feeling of pride in a hard day's work, the feeling of being somebody important or valued in your community or in your in your community. And like people don't really have that in large respect. So like your feeling of being someone or being notable or being relevant is by like going at others, right? And like we engage in this kind of culture war. I like putting it in the politics of spite. Um, and like the internet has and I know because I went way off because I was speaking about the internet earlier, right? But the internet has allowed for that to happen even more, you know. So we're engaging in that even more because we're allowed to get into our echo chambers on the internet, right? And so it's one thing when you have these own thoughts and maybe two or three other people that personally agree with you, maybe even five, six, seven people that agree with you personally, maybe even let's say a dozen or so. Now it's a whole different story when you're in a Facebook group with a few hundred people who are all spouting the same type of things, right? Whether that's politically the same type of things, or like when we speak about this whole back and forth, between genders, um, primarily in the black community, but even outside of the black community, it's one thing to be in these echo chambers, right? And so that's one thing that, listening to these other content creators, these kind of divester swirler content creators, and listening to them, because they're like the people that are subscribed to them, their subscribers, that's all they really listen to is like that type of content with a dash of like black men luxury content, swirler stuff. They follow a lot of these interracial relationships on YouTube. They like these people, like how we have YouTube scholars. These people like TikTok and Instagram scholars. They're, excuse me, if I'm gonna sound like one of these, I guess now I'm gonna sound like an old millennial. But like, if you thought our attention span was short, these people that live on YouTube or TikTok, they want that information like to be instant, which is interesting because a lot of the women and the girls obviously are are in school and in college where things are slower, but then they jump on the internet and like they're watching all of these 60-second clips and 2 and 3 minute long clips. And I'm like, these things, it just, life doesn't work that way. Life is not a microwave. So you have the patience to go to school for, 4 and 6 years after high school, but you don't have the patience to like develop with a man, or you don't have the patience to watch something that's going to slowly explain to you kind of how we got to where we are as a society or as a country or as a community. you know that's interesting to me. Pensive said Americans can barely even agree on what constitutes a good person. Yeah, that's true. Give me a second, everyone. I'm just reading these comments real quick. Oh yeah, no, you're right, Pensive. YouTube videos are much, much longer. I was here in the beginning. I was here. I was here. Right. I've been engaging with YouTube since its beginning, since '07, '08. Since '07, '08, I want to say I've been engaging with YouTube. Like, yeah, I've been here since the jump, right? I just um I think I subscribed. I actually made a YouTube account in '09, but I've been on YouTube since the very beginning, right? And I just started making YouTube videos last year sometime. And what's interesting is you can ask Roger, you can ask BGS, you can ask Charles. People were asking me to make videos in the comments, and even those brothers were asking me to, what am I doing, um, for the longest. And then even before that, in my real life, there were people that wanted me to start a podcast. I was being told to start a podcast, shit, as early as 2010, right? Um, and definitely one of my boys, an African cat, um, like sat down with me for real and was like, "Bro, you need to buy a mic. We need to get you on a podcast." And this was like back in like 2013, maybe, right? So like, yeah, man, yeah. So it's not, yeah, yeah. I've been here for a while. I think that's what I'm getting at. That's what I think I'm getting at. Locked and loaded. Thank you, thank you. Right, thank you. You know. But yeah, y'all. So is it? Yeah, it's just. Yeah, I've talked y'all head off tonight. I think I've kept y'all company. Um, how many people we got listening in? We got what? 44 people. Jeez. Go to sleep. No, I'm playing with y'all. Now some of y'all are waking up, actually getting ready for work. Um, Shout out to all the brothers that's now getting up, and shout out to all the brothers that once I end this stream, they're going to sleep. Um, the transition, I guess, right? But yeah, man. So that's the interesting thing about you know everything I said tonight, especially for mashup part one, going in, on Paris Milan, speaking about EVs and car related stuff, speaking about the bridge from Crimea to Russia, um, this particular mashup part two, which I more emphasized, um, the let them eat cake part. That shows y'all that I was freestyling, yes, but I wanted to hit particular points, and I do remember much of what I said. Um, so I wasn't just rambling just to ramble. But yeah, the let them eat cake part, which I did hear more on mashup part two, which for those of you that missed the beginning, I'll just give you a Reader's Digest part of it. I was watching. I've been following Richard Reeves for years. Richard Reeves is a British kind of social scientist, I want to say, sociologist. He's originally from Britain. He wrote Dream Hoarders. Now he wrote another book. I mentioned this to you guys before. He wrote another book. This one about boys and men, and their struggles. And I've been watching his more recent interviews for the past couple weeks, and also so Sagar Enjeti and Crystal Ball from Breaking Points invited another white guy on about a week ago now to speak about kind of the crisis of boys and men. I think he also has a book out about this, and this guy, um, he kind of was speaking about the environment and speaking about like a lot of these men, they're not even. He said something like, for every one man that's unemployed, so on record unemployed, there's about 3 or 4 men that are just not looking. So they're not even on the books as being unemployed. They just completely dropped out of the system. And when I was listening to him and I was listening to kind of the social ramifications, because I think Sagar asked, because I think Sagar's trying to prove a point to the overall society without coming off like a sec. I think Sagar's red pill. I think Sagar's red pill, but he can't say that shit, right? So I think he tries to make societal appeals to like helping boys and men because he's trying to like ring the alarm for overall society by saying like, hey, y'all, like this is gonna hurt y'all too. Like he's trying to yell that without saying it, because if he says it kind of red pillish, then he's gonna get like banned from everything and he's gonna look like some sexist monster, right? Some misogynist monster. So I think what he's trying to do is like yell to both conservatives and liberals, left and right, like, hey, there's a crisis with men and boys, and if y'all don't address it, it's going to affect way more of the society than you think, right? So I think Sagar asked if I remember correctly, Sagar asked the man, um, how does all of this affect society, and um, and by the way, this is my Reader's Digest version, right? This is like long as shit. I know. But when Sagar asked the man, how does the men falling off affect society, and the man started going into detail, and I remember just thinking to myself because I was getting annoyed, and I'm like, let them eat cake. Let them. No, you rejiggered this entire society to work for your daughters and f your sons, and as Dr. Hassan was saying a couple nights ago, it's even affecting white boys, right? Young white boys in school, right? Who are getting suspended and expelled more and more. Yeah, no, it's fine. You rejiggered this thing for your daughters. Cool. Let your daughters eat cake when it's time to get married, when it's time to have children. Fine, right? And so this stream, I kind of stressed that part of it. The first stream, Mashup Part 1, was a different conversation. Mashup Part 2 was more me, for those of you that came in, y'all heard me speaking about the environment, social media, the internet, all of that stuff, lower sex rates and whatever. But the beginning of this, I was essentially on some, no, let these women and these girls eat cake. Let a lot of y'all Xers, younger boomers, um, let y'all watch as your daughters get well into their 40s, never married, never had children, and maybe had 1 or 2 real relationships throughout their life. Y'all rejiggered this thing to work for your daughters at the expense of your sons. Oh well, so be it. Right? And many of you, black women, women in general, because white women were on this too, black women specifically, you raise your daughters to be assholes. Complete and total assholes. So we keep on talking about loving our sons and raising our daughters, and essentially saying you're babying your sons. We keep on talking about that, right? We keep on talking about how immature our sons are. Nobody want to talk about your asshole daughters. I didn't call them B words. I said your daughters are assholes. They're mean, they're rude, they're insufferable. That's why they can't keep a man worth a damn, regardless of the type of man they date. White, black, middle class, poor, maybe upper middle class. Your daughters can't keep a man because she's an asshole. Like I said, mean, rude, insufferable, and maybe even socially awkward. And so that's what I started off with Mashup Part 2. That's my Reader's Digest. right? And that kind of speaks to some of the cosmic justice type stuff that I've mentioned to you guys before, like where women, particularly black women, get off on being mean to men, black men specifically, because they feel like they're paying men back for like, because this is what feminists have taught them. Men have been running the board for millennia, and so like you get to talk to him any kind of way, treat him any way because it's kind of get back, right? It's payback, it's retribution, right? For like millennia of sexism and misogyny, and for black women, misogynoir, right? This is what I was kind of speaking to with my previous video, the one that spoke about the mystic and um um what was the word I used? Mystic, pretty much mystic misandry, right? Right. Supernatural, spiritual, and mystic misandry. A lot of women feel like that this is just get back. Just eat it, men. Just eat it. For black women, it's just eat it, black men. Especially for black women, it's eat it because you don't show up for us. You haven't built anything for us. You don't support us, right? You haven't um graped, pillaged, destroyed the planet so to make us elite women. And so eat this disrespect, right? And our society continues to pretend like their daughters are not, like that's not how they think and feel, until they put a camera in front of their daughters and ask their daughters these questions candidly. Rest in peace, Kevin Samuels. That Kevin, you know, when Kevin was alive, y'all didn't see me kind of be on his jock like that. I wasn't worshiping Kevin. I didn't reference him all the time. And even now that he's passed, I don't reference him all the time, except for a couple of videos that I think were like paramount in so much of the conversation. But the one thing that Kevin did at a super high level was make it so unbelievably obvious how much contempt mainly black women, but other women too, have for men, mainly black men, and how much they objectify men, namely black men. He he made it so it was undeniable. And our society has been left reeling with that. And no, Kevin did become super household name, right? He didn't get to that next level. If he would have stayed alive, I think that would have happened. It's very possible he could have got to that next level. But even with his, especially that the YouTube career being so short, when he really blew up, it's just rippled through, especially the black community. It's rippled through the black community, especially the spin-offs of like, wannabe Kevins, and the spin-offs and some of the conversation that people have been having since he really blew up, especially the average at best video. But the reason why I brought him up in this conversation, and just to say this, is the assholeness you saw. And I know a lot of people remember just seeing 22 and 23 and 25-year-olds and how they sassed him. I want to be very clear what I'm saying. They came in the door being disrespectful. It's not that Kevin said anything necessarily disrespectful to them, or that he was, he had an attitude with them. They walked in the door disrespectful. Right? And the interesting thing is that no one really knew what to do with that. All they could do was call him like sexist, misogynistic, misogynoir, da 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 da. Right? And like, that's what I found supremely interesting about this entire conversation, and what's kind of trickled down from it since. Because our society refuses to acknowledge. I mean, when you have Simone Sanders, because let's tie this politically, tell Uncle Luke pretty much no one has asked black men's unsolicited opinion. Shut up. Nobody asks. Like that insane level of disrespect, public spectacle disrespect. Y'all raised asshole daughters. Y'all encouraged your daughters to be assholes to black men and boys. These same women can't get married now, mainly because they think they're better than those same black men and boys. Because you raised them that they're better than those black men and boys. Now you raised an insufferable asshole that even a lot of these mothers can't control these daughters. The ones that do really practice mainly emotional terrorism on their daughters, that's what Rael be speaking on all the time. But the ones that are not proficient at the emotional terrorism of their daughters, they can't control these daughters. Their 20 something, 30 something year old daughters, because they raised them to be assholes. Right? And so y'all have seen this for many of you that have known me since, I first really made my presence known in the Black Manosphere. That has always been my project. Your sons aren't in this by them. Your sons aren't just the one problem, right? Your sons aren't just the one problem. Your sons are immature. You babied them too much. Like everyone keeps on saying, oh, we love our sons and we raise our daughters. I don't even want to say the B word because I think that's too easy. And whoever listens to this just, oh yeah, he's sexist, misogynist. No, your daughter is an asshole. Now y'all can keep on making excuses. Well, she's an asshole because all the stuff she has to deal with, and the men and the black men don't step up, and da 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 da. Yeah, whatever. No, you raised her that way from jump. You just don't like what that means for her intimate life, right? You don't like the fact now that she can't keep a job worth a damn, degree or not. And she definitely can't keep a man worth a damn. Or your daughter's socially awkward and an asshole, right? So my project from the jump has been, we hyper focused on our sons and trying to raise them to be either to bow to the gynocracy or the feminist order at best. I mean, at worst, or to be okay with being being in an egalitarian relationship. What's going on, Charles Finney? Right? At worst, we raise them to adhere to the gynocratic social order, and at best, we raise them to be okay with an egalitarian relationship. And your daughters are coming back and saying, "Yeah, I want the gynocracy, but I want him to be a baller. Essentially, I want Idris Elba, but I want Idris Elba to treat me like I'm the prize. No matter where I am socially, politically, economically. I want Idris, but I want Idris to treat me like I'm the prize. It don't matter how much I weigh. It don't matter about my attitude, my hygiene, my education, my looks. Like, that's so many black women's dream. To meet like their dream guy with the money and the status and the looks and whatever and the sex and the gift of gab, and all their friends are jealous of them and he gives them the lifestyle, all of it. But then no matter where she is economically and socially, somehow she's the prize still though. And so my project is, let's say I concede all of the black men are immature, men are immature, these are boys, they're not men, da da da. I still say, nah, yeah, yeah, I'll take all of that. Your daughters are still assholes, though. Insufferable. Like, the bar for men, black men specifically, is so damn low. We talk about this all the time. How low the bar is for men, for black men, right? The concuserfs. We talk about this all the time. And even with that bar being so damn low, y'all have made y'all daughters so insufferable. Even with the bar that damn low, you got black men talking about passport bros and dating outside of the race. Your daughters weigh more than everybody else, every other woman in the country. And black men were still willing to deal with that. Your daughters were more sassy and attitudinal than everybody else in the country. And black men were willing to deal with that. Your daughters went around the country for the better part, really from the beginning, but for the better part of 50 years, doing nothing but ripping your sons apart in the media. And your sons were even willing to deal with that, to the point where some of them actually engaged in ripping black men apart too. But it's gotten so bad that your sons are now talking about openly dating and marrying out, and then even traveling to other countries because maybe this is bigger than just a black problem and it's a Western problem, a Britain, America, Canada, Western Europe problem. And y'all still gonna keep on blaming the boys and the men? White dudes been passport bros, so we can't even. That's not even a thing. Y'all are gonna continue. When are we ever gonna have the conversation about? Yeah, maybe we OD'd when we told our daughters, don't. Hey, you don't need no man, and you could do this by yourself and get your education. Don't worry about no man. Maybe that's the one part I agree with Obsidian 1,000,000% on that. Your daughters are coming out of college, 29 years old, jaded as hell, mad at the world, including your sons. Right? Like I said, that's been my project. Yes, we're still black. We live in an anti-black society, and your daughters have low key agreed with all of this stuff. And high key, now they're saying it more and more as divestors and swirlers. But even the ones that are not card carrying divestors and swirlers tacitly agree. That's why Mahogany Pink's page got like 55,000 subscribers or something, but her videos got hundreds of thousands of views. That's a prime example. The card carrying divestors and black men ain't ish women, they subscribe. The ones tacitly, they watch, but they're not subscribed. Right? Lionel Player One says black men need to step up. Is what he said is buzzwords that has no real meaning because it's only said to shame us into subservience to black women without cause. Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. That's exactly what it is. Shout out to you, brother. That's exactly what it is. And so, right? Let's just say the nuclear family is done unless you got some money. and some status, and then even then you don't really. I was listening to Leader Turney stream. Y'all be surprised what I listen to. I listen to everything. That's how I know about the bridge in Russia, between Russia and Crimea collapsing. That's how I know about Nuri Martinez situation. That's how I know. I listen to a bunch of stuff. But yeah, I was listening to Leader Turney stream when he was like, "What is a good?" What he said, a good marriage, and he was speaking about like if you get 7 years, 10 years, and let's say only 2 of the years were bad or 1 of the years were bad, and that's when y'all got divorced or whatever, that was a good marriage. And like he's speaking about redefining what good marriage is because the environment, right? Essentially, that's what he's saying. Like maybe we shouldn't put stock in like what some of us saw from our parents and definitely maybe our grandparents in these 30, 40, 50 year long marriages, you know? Definitely 40 and 50 year long marriages. Maybe that's not a thing anymore, right? What I would argue, and obviously Leader Turney is a divorce attorney, so he would know better than me. I would argue it's not a thing, and it may even be less of a thing than definitely it was decades ago, but it's not a thing for a certain socioeconomic strata and below. You could, it's less likely than it was maybe 30 years ago, but if you're part of that top 20%, like y'all hear me say this all the time, it's going to be like the theme of my channel forever. But if you're in the top 20 plus percent, maybe you could get to that 40 year line, obviously depending on when you get married to this person. All right, but if you're below that and definitely below the top third, yeah, probably not. Probably what the lead attorney says is most likely going to be your faith if you fate, not faith, your fate if you get married, which is, you get married and maybe y'all make it to the decade line and y'all have like, 8 years of pretty okay, and then maybe a year or two of, turmoil and then divorce, right? And maybe that's the way we have to start thinking about these things, unfortunately, right? But then that speaks, you know, I like that we're having these conversations, and I definitely I like stressing that it's not character flaw. I think that's what I should have said earlier. That's what I've been stressing. It's not simply, I should rephrase. It's not simply character flaw in men that's causing these relationships and these marriages to break apart. It's also, and mainly, better yet, financial, and it's because women have been encouraged to have insane monetary expectations, and that's why y'all have heard me push. I've shown this multiple times now on my channel. The clip from Wisecrack where they speak about Malcolm in the Middle, and they speak about lifestyle brands and how our society, particularly um, Disney and Nickelodeon and whatnot, have pushed lifestyle brands to girls, right? Like this lifestyle marketing to girls. Right? Not saying it didn't happen with boys, but it was mainly to girls, and they even stressed this. And so now that those girls are women, so we're talking about people, definitely millennials, my age, a little bit older, definitely younger, who've just been hit upside the head with this kind of consumerist materialism. You get here where they define their happiness by these things, and then men are supposed to come through and deliver these things. And so what a man is, when I say walking wallet, when y'all been hearing me say walking wallet for years now, I didn't pull that out of my rear end. Like what I'm doing on my channel is I'm not just speaking out of my rear end. I'm showing y'all where I'm getting these things from. That's why I don't hide these things. That's why y'all see my community tab. I show you things, and I would put even more in my community tab, right? If I just don't want to bombard y'all with all of that stuff. But you know, I show y'all what I where I get my stuff when I talked about dating racism, right? When I talked about consumerism, and I didn't even show y'all all the stuff I watched on not consumerism, the commodities, right? Um, I'm just watching these things and I'm putting these puzzle pieces together. And obviously, once again, you never have all of them together, but I'm putting these things together to paint a picture to show why we are where we are, right? And obviously, black women have a role to play in this, duh. But there's also larger societal factors that play a role in this. The difference between us and the women on the others, whatever they want to call themselves, black women empowerment gang, um, is they're not having that conversation, right? Like I said, I listen to Paris Malone. I peek into Paris Malone lives. I peek into Chrissy's lives. I peek into Real Talk with Yanni and her videos and whatnot. And they're not having that conversation, y'all. They're not. It's frightening. They're not. We're having that conversation both on the left and the right of the black manosphere, right? And so I think the men are going to be as we get older, for those of us in our 30s, early 40s, as we get into our 40s and 50s, for the younger millennials and the Gen Z that's in their 20s, as you get into your 30s and 40s, I think we're going to be far more grounded and far more prepared for the insanity and the change than the women are. Especially psychologically, mentally, psychologically, and emotionally, I think we're going to be far better prepared than especially for people that are consuming a lot of this stuff on social media on the internet, because we're actually having these conversations, and then we're having elders and wise ones, Black Uru, BGS, Art New Style, all of the older brothers, right? That give us some wisdom. The Roger Report, right? We're actually having these conversations, you know, all the doctors in the space, where the women, not so much. And I think that's going to woefully under prepare them for the next few decades. These women that are our age, in our 30s and our 20s, maybe work wise they'll be all right, but emotionally, mentally, oh yeah, they're not ready. They're not ready. They're not ready. And no one is trying to prepare them either. Like, no one. On the very tangent, I hear, like I said, I hear Juicy trying to apply the brakes every once in a while. If Kim from Fort Harriet is not making some slick ass video about black men, she might be trying to apply the brakes a little bit too, or at least steer clear of the curb. But outside of them two, maybe nappy headed jojoba, I mean, no, not really. Not really. It's a handful of them over there. Maybe there's a couple more that I'm not thinking of right now, because I'm trying to. Is Khadijah? Fab Socialism? Not. I mean, right? So I don't think they ready. Are they truly ready for decades of loneliness and no children and you know, right? I didn't say being alone, because being alone can lead to loneliness, obviously, but just because you're alone doesn't mean you feel lonely. Are they ready for this? Are they ready to watch automation take some of their jobs in these offices around the country? Nah, I would argue no, because no one outside of a handful of them is saying, hey, we sound crazy. Like I said, when Juicy covered that video saying black women have never been encouraged to settle, all through her comments are just black woman after black woman disagreeing with her. Where did y'all get y'all information from? It's straight opinions. So that let me know they're not ready because like it's Julesy, it's who else? Nappy headed jojoba, maybe Kim from not even Kim because Kim once again she goes in on black men every chance she get to. So it's Julesy and like maybe one or two of them versus just a sea of swirler divester content, black women level up content, black woman empowerment content. And every time Juicy even mentions something, I've seen it. I remember when her and I brought it up in one of the previous videos when her and Chrissy went back and forth. It was interesting listening to someone chastise another person for kind of being a scholar in these things and like you're like book smart but street dumb type thing, right? And all I really heard was a person begging to stay in their delusion, begging to say like, I want to make rage porn content. Don't be telling me I can't. Like the stuff I make sounds stupid or delusional or da da da. Like, and a lot of a lot of Chrissy subscribers ate that up. So yeah, like I'm saying, they're not ready for the change, or even though they're living through it. And like I said earlier, my project has been these are your daughters. Shout out to all the brothers in the Black Manosphere that you're raising your daughters, to kind of know what's going on in this world, to not be delusional, to be able to connect with a man, to spot a good man, to value a good man. Um, Shout out to y'all, right? Shout out to y'all that hit your daughters with some real, right? So that she doesn't come out here and get taken advantage of by some of the men that don't mean her well, right? Shout out to y'all. But for all the other ones of y'all that's raising y'all daughters to be some egomaniacs, all right, right? You're raising your daughters to be some egomaniacs, okay? That ain't that. I don't know how that's gonna turn out. No, actually, I do know how it's gonna turn out. Not well. Not well at all. You're raising your daughters to be assholes, right? To be sassy for no reason. You think it's cute. Your wife or your ex-wife or your baby mama think it's cute. All right. What I'm hearing from Gen Z men, heterosexual Gen Z men, the ones that your daughters are gonna want in 5 years, is they not doing it. Maybe you know different. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's see. Right? But all right, you guys, I am about to call it a night. Or for you guys, a morning. For me, it's about to be night. Right? I might do a stream a little bit later. I really do gotta do a part two of the neoliberal black woman. Um, I really got to do a part two on that. I enjoyed y'all listening to me for hours, right? Yeah, man. Like I said before, this was just gonna be a mashup of just me talking to talk, and just some of the things I've been thinking, and watching and putting them together. Yeah, for the things y'all disagree with, what's going on, Oliver the Gray? But yeah, I will holla at y'all later, right? I'll pause right there. Love, peace, and chicken grease. Y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Um, all right, everybody. Mr. Z out.